Hi everyone, my name is Nate Sheets with Organ Behavior Consultation, and in this, our fourth and final video in our series on the cognitive skills, we'll be talking about the last two categories. These categories are memory and perception, as well as social understanding and regulation. Skill number 18 is asking how the person does at relaying information that they've learned just a few minutes ago. For people with FASD, many of them are not going to score very well on this list. And the problem with the memory loss that's common with FASD is that it can lead to situations that might seem like the client is lying to us. When there are memory issues going on, a few things can happen. The person might just tell you that they don't remember, but they might do other things, like try to give you the answer that they think you want to hear, or just impulsively try to answer your question. Their brain may confabulate, meaning that it fills in the blanks with information that they think is correct, and in some cases their perception of the event might be off, in which case it's not even a memory issue at that point, but it's a perception issue, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. The next skill number 19, is asking the same question, how the person does at remembering memories from not minutes ago, but days, weeks, months, or years later. Now, people with FASD have memory issues in almost all areas, including working memory, which we discussed in the first video of the series. However, for many people with FASD, their long-term memory is actually better than their short-term memory. There's probably a lot of reasons why this is, but when we think of FASD as a disorder that stops the brain from communicating with itself quickly and consistently, it makes sense that being able to access certain areas just can't happen much of the time. And so for the FASD brain, depending on the day, it might be easier to remember things that have been thought of more and more, so things that have happened longer ago, than things that are not as established in the brain as a memory. Now, there is a possibility that the person's memory will degrade. In fact, it's not just a possibility, it's a certainty, because it's true for all of us. But we're going to talk about that kind of situation in another skill from now. Skill number 20 is how the person is at remembering the goal or the incentive for what they're doing, and not getting so wrapped up in the tasks and probably the fact that they don't like the tasks that they forget that ultimate goal. This is not really a cognitive skill per se, as it is a cognitive task, and I include it because it's helpful to know where somebody falls with this task, because we can have specialized supports for them. For example, you might tell the person that you're working with that if they go and clean their room, you'll take them out to ice cream afterwards. This is a big motivator for them, and so they go and they clean their room. Now, when they get in there, all of the tasks that it takes to actually clean the room might start to get overwhelming, especially if we're not offering any supports. Remember, cleaning your room takes a lot of cognitive skills, probably a good portion of the ones that you've already heard about through previous videos in the series. So as that person is in their room, the incentive, which is to go to ice cream, might start to fade away as they get overwhelmed or frustrated with what they are expected to do. All you have to do in a lot of cases is just remind them of the incentive or offer additional support. For example, you might want to visualize the incentive so that way they can have it with them in their room, and if they start to get frustrated, they can look down at it and say, oh wait, I want to do this because I want to go to ice cream. You might see this task in other ways that don't have to do with providing an incentive. The person might forget who certain team members are, such as their therapist or their psychologist, and not really know the purpose of all of the visits, even though we've explained it to them. Skill number 21 is interpreting situations or conversations accurately several days, weeks, months, or years later. People with FASD might have memory issues that lead to a change in how they perceived the situation. Now, some people will have a misperception right from the get-go as the situation is happening. We're not talking about that. That will be addressed a few skills from now. Right now, we're talking about somebody who at one time had a correct perception of a conversation or a situation, but then over time, it has changed completely. And when you ask them about it, they might even get defensive because to them, that's their reality. And to have people in their life telling them that their picture of reality is inaccurate, it's disconcerting and it might lead to escalation. This is another situation where, with the right factors in place, their misperception can be interpreted as lying by those who are talking to them. And skill number 22 has to do with time perception. How is the person at understanding the concept of time? For example, I'm going to assume most of us have a pretty good idea or feeling of 5 minutes versus 15 minutes of time. Or if we were asked to, we could probably give a somewhat accurate estimation of when an hour has passed, when 2 hours has passed, and when 3 hours has passed. For people with FASD and a lot of other developmental conditions, their perception of time might be different. This likely takes a lot of different forms, but practically what it can mean is that when you say, oh, this will only take you 5 or 10 minutes, to that person, that perception may not be comforting. To them, 5 minutes might as well be an hour. There are several things we can do to help with time perception, including using timers or putting things into short chunks and bursts, and that can help them do one step at a time and not be so worried about the overall time it's taking. So you can focus on number of steps rather than number of minutes, just as an example. Now we're moving into the social understanding, social skills, and social processing tasks and cognitive skills in the organ behavior consultation skills list. Skill number 23 is asking how the person is at accurately interpreting a situation around them in the moment. So what I mean by in the moment is real-time evaluation of how people are reacting, how I'm coming across, etc., etc. And we break it down a little bit further down the list. Some people are not good at all when it comes to reading the room, meaning that they're so focused on their conversation, potentially, they're not picking up on social cues of other people. Some people just naturally don't pick up on social cues because that's not how their brain works. This means that they might be saying or doing something that other people feel is inappropriate or it's making them uncomfortable. Some of these people, and this leads us to skill number 24, once you explain what happened, they get it. Because they weren't able to do it in real time, but once you were able to give them the feedback and they have a relationship where they trust your feedback, then they'll understand that, oh yeah, that probably didn't go across very well. And so that's what skill number 24 is asking. Is this person the kind of person who can take and understand that feedback, but they just need some work on being able to read the room in real time? Some people will still score low on this, meaning they're not very good, skill 23, at reading the room, nor when you give them the feedback, skill 24, are they able to really accept it or understand what the issue was. I'm not going to go into specific social skill supports for each of these social skills right now, because that would make the video really long and we're trying to keep this short. And so we're going to be making social skill practical kind of solutions to help build these skills and to respond when things aren't going very well in future videos. Skill 25 is simply asking how the person does at appreciating somebody else's point of view. This is not an FASD centric or specific skill. We find that people with FASD can fall in any category on this. Skill number 26 is simply how is the person at being able to have a conversation? Do they have the skills to do it on some basic level? People with FASD typically fall into a pretty good category here. Depending on how long the conversation goes, things might start to turn downhill, things might become inappropriate or confusing, or the person's dysmaturity might make long interactions with peers somewhat stressed. But skill 26 is just asking how they are at having a basic conversation. Skill 27 is asking how the person does at temporarily modifying their behavior based upon who is in the room. Maybe there's somebody that they want to impress, or maybe there's people that they don't know very well. Some people are able, with that social kind of pressure, to change their behaviors in a more positive direction. Other clients may really want to, but they don't have all of the other cognitive skills such as impulse control and planning that it would take to do so successfully. And so, for those people, they feel really unsuccessful when negative social interactions take place, because it means something to them. Other people still are not very good at doing that at all, and it might be that they don't really care. In a sense, those people make my life easier, because as I do consulting, when I go and observe them, I might actually witness a behavior, because most people are actually pretty good at, for short periods of time, changing their behavior, and we all do it. The last cognitive skill is sensory processing and regulation. This has to do with our sensory system, and we're going to be making some videos on this in the future. At any given point, your brain is processing millions and millions of bits of information that are involved in your sensory system. This sensory information is a huge part of your perception, which we've already discussed a little bit. Sensory challenges are really significant for people with FASD and many other developmental conditions, including autism. Most of what your sensory processing system does is ignore things. Imagine for a moment being aware of all of the sensations that you actually feel at all times. For example, if you're wearing clothes right now, you feel your shirt against your body. You feel your pants against your body, maybe your socks against your feet, your ring on your finger, your glasses on your face. You also always see your nose, but our brains ignore it. And so what we see is that the sensory system is ignoring a lot of things. We only are really aware of it when our attention goes to it. People with sensory issues can have a lot of different manifestations of this. They might be oversensitive to certain stimuli, such as noises or lights. They might be undersensitive to certain stimuli, such as noises or lights. And in a lot of cases, what we have is a risk of overstimulation. Overstimulation is hard to describe, so we're going to put a link to some great videos that try to simulate it for us. Essentially, what's going on is the brain is not ignoring enough stuff, nor is it prioritizing what is most important. So if there is something making noise in the room next to you right now, maybe it's a heating vent or some traffic outside, imagine having that information be at the same level as the volume of my voice right now. In order for you to hear what I'm saying, your attention would have to be very, very much on me trying to ignore the conflicting noise. That means that you're going to be using a lot of executive functioning fuel just to focus on the one thing that you need to. Unfortunately, though, for many people, it's not just two competing elements. There could be several. And so what happens as things become a little bit more and more chaotic, frustration can occur, anxiety can occur, and in some situations, you can have an overstimulation meltdown. Generally speaking, the autistic community refers to these events as autistic meltdowns, but we can see it in the FASD population too. In these moments, all of their cognitive skills will drop, meaning they're not going to be able to solve a problem with you, they're probably not going to be able to understand what you're saying, and they're probably not going to be able to regulate their emotions very well. In upcoming videos, we're going to talk about supports that you can do if this were to happen to the person that you're working with. And so that is the last skill in the organ behavior consultation cognitive skills list. We hope that this video has been helpful to you in filling out the list for the person that you're working with. And now what you'll be able to do as you try to think ahead, in addition to asking what's going to happen, you can ask, what skills does this person need? And in future videos, we're going to be giving you guys some examples about how thinking ahead in terms of cognitive skills can help you reduce challenging behaviors. If you haven't already, please like our page on Facebook, we'll put the address below, and subscribe to us here on YouTube. Thanks for watching.